and KC on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lasher Elk Grove Dodge. We bring in 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham. Boy, you're reporting about Dante DiVincenzo. It started all sorts of stuff.
Man,
talking about this. Jarrell just called us about it. Can this relate? Are you of the belief this relationship can be fixed?
Yeah, I think it can be fixed. But I think there has to be willingness to try to fix it. And I think that that's one of the bigger issues that I have. When you report stuff like this, you always have to look at the source and understand why you're reporting it for somebody, or why, I like to be fair and comprehensive. And so I've known that there's an issue there for a couple of weeks. And to be fair, I went to the Kings front office and presented some of the information that I had, and the response to me was, exactly what this response was to Dante DiVincenzo, to basically leave him on the bench. And it was like, okay, like they knew. My point is, the Kings knew long ago that this was an issue. There is no surprise here. Like his people have had conversations with the Kings front office 3 or 4 times specifically about this situation, about the fact that not only is he not starting, he's playing plenty of minutes. They get that. But it's the perception that they're trying to diminish his value in free agency by converting him from a potential starter to a bench player. And that's what it comes down to. And so, look, we went into an exhaustive conversation on this during the podcast on last Thursday, me and Brendan. I think we spent 40 minutes roughly on Dante DiVincenzo, how he fits, his season, player comps, which again, Brendan was incredible coming up with player comps, because I don't know if I would have been able to come up with all those names. At the end of the day, though, like, this is one of those situations that was 100% avoidable, and avoidable, I guess, from one side, like, because the Kings might be they're well within their rights to start whoever they want. But when you refuse to start somebody who started 66 games for the championship Bucks last season, and the only reason he didn't start all this year is because he tore a tendon in his ankle in the playoffs last year, and then he comes to a team like the Kings, and not only is he not starting, but he's coming off the bench behind, nothing against Justin Holiday, but a 33-year-old journeyman who's shooting 33% from the field. So, like, there's definitely, no one is wrong to ask questions about this at all. And so, like, look, I'm always fair. I'm always balanced the best I can be. The clip that most people have seen, they should probably listen to the entire podcast, because it's very straightforward and fair and balanced, and gives both perspectives, because I'm not sure that Dante DiVincenzo is a starter. I'm not sure that he is a starter next season for this team. If this team can get better, they can get better at a couple of positions, starting at the power forward position and at the shooting guard position. And so I would have liked to have seen him start to see if he was starter quality for them. But at the same time, I think that this situation was completely avoidable.
How you doing, first of all, James?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care how you're doing, James. I just jump in with the questions. I'm a broadcast journalist.
That's good. I mean, like, look, this is one of those situations that I've been through so many times, and not specifically with DiVincenzo. I have been through that before once or twice, but I've been through situations like with the Alvin Gentry, being relieved of his duties and all that stuff. Like, this is like old hat. I think he was my 7th head coach or 8th. I'd have to do a quick thought in my head, but yeah, I'm doing all right. So this is just kind of the season finale is always intriguing like this.
It is what it is all the time. Try not to do this, because I guess in journalism school, even though I got a degree in broadcast journalism, I don't remember this. Say don't ask 2-part questions.
Yeah, don't ask 2-part questions, because they're going to forget at least one part and only answer one of them.
Got a two-parter for you here, James. Uh, number one, do you believe that's what's going on with the Kings? Are they trying to stunt his DiVincenzo's market? Number two, it doesn't matter if they are or not. Is that like how much are they trying to save? How much do they think they'd be saving by doing this? Isn't it like a $2 million? It's nothing really. It's like $2 million that you potentially will be saving. You're not going to turn DiVincenzo by starting him from a $10 million a year player to a $35 million a year player.
Okay, so I think it's more complicated than that. Number one, the answer to your first of two questions is yes. I do believe that the Kings were trying. Well, that's what they did. Their intention was to put into question whether or not DiVincenzo is a starter or a role player, a bench player. I think that very specifically, like they knew this was coming. It's like the guy who doesn't get out of the way of the steamroller in Austin Powers. Like he's got like 7 seconds. He keeps going, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. And he just like, oh, like he's screaming and yelling like minutes before it's going to happen. So yeah, like they knew this was coming.
That sounds funny. I should watch that one day.
No, I haven't seen that, but the visual is hilarious. That is funny.
Yeah, you guys. Oh, you haven't watched Austin? I mean, it's filled with
Never
like
seen
Kings.
either one of them.
Like there's a scene where he gets stuck with a golf cart in a hallway where he keeps making
No, I have
turns.
seen that meme, yeah.
Okay, you've seen that. Well, it's right before that as a steamroller scene. But how many times does the Kings feel like the guy stuck in a golf cart in a hallway? I mean, that's all the time. Like
The Kings
they get
live
into
like the guy stuff in a golf course, or
Yeah.
stuck in a golf cart in the hallway.
Yeah, they get stuck all the time. And so, yes, to answer the first part of your question, I do believe this was intentional. And I understand his agent's gripe his gripe and everyone else's gripe that, half the fan base are sitting here like yelling and screaming, why isn't Dante DiVincenzo starting? And I think the biggest issue, too, is at times it felt spiteful. And that's where I think you got the anger. I think when the one start he did get was because Justin Holiday got the flu and he goes in, he starts against the Chicago Bulls. They beat the Bulls. Him and De'Aaron Fox are spectacular together. He ends up with Fox had 34. I think DiVincenzo had 15 and stuffed the stat sheet. Like they're really good together. The problem is the next game. This is where I think like it all hinged upon and where it really does break down to a huge issue between the two sides. They played the Bucks. It was his former team. He should have started against his former team. He had earned the start with his previous performance. And I think for him and the people around him, that felt spiteful. That felt like a direct shot that, no, we're in charge here and we're going to dictate. So how much did they save to get to part two? They would have saved. Okay, so he didn't reach the starter criteria, which I think we talked about a little bit last weekend. But I think we also talked about the starter criteria like ad nauseum when it came to Marvin Bagley. So because Dante DiVincenzo was the 17th pick in the draft, if he would have started the average of 41 games over 41 games over 2 seasons, or 2,000 minutes per season, an average of 2,000 minutes per season, then his qualifying offer goes from roughly $6.6 million as the 17th pick to $7.9 million as what is the equivalent of what the 9th pick in the draft's qualifying offer would be. It's Kevin Knox. That doesn't really matter who it is. It's whoever that placeholder is at the 9th pick in the draft, his qualifying offer goes up. So realistically, it's only $1.3 million in change in qualifying offer. But when you're looking at your cap space and you might have 13, 14, 15 million, but you don't really because you have some exceptions and all these other things, right? 1.3, 1.4 million, it does actually matter because the way you do qualifying offers, you extend a qualifying offer and then you go into free agency with cap space. That 6.6 million is like a placeholder as part of your salary cap. And then you can go sign players, and then you can come back to that player after you sign the other players, and you can sign him for more money than the 6.6 million and exceed the cap, right? So if you sign him first and you exceed the cap, so the reason why that 1.3 million, it does matter a little bit because it's money up front that you can go use to sign other players. But still, I don't even know if the Kings were looking at that as much as this really just became like an awkward situation that I think was pretty avoidable in most situations. Like, again, like if they didn't know this was coming, I don't know what to tell them. There was no like organized attack here on the Sacramento Kings. But if we're going to talk Donte DiVincenzo for 40 minutes on a podcast and his potential to be with the Sacramento Kings going forward, then I'm clearly going to discuss the situation that I know to be happening right now behind the scenes as part of that discussion.
I'm going to need you to repeat both parts because I was watching the steamroller scene in Austin Powers. It is funny.
It's hilarious.
The visual is pretty funny. When it does the wide shot and he has his hand out like that and the steamroller's not even close to him, that's pretty freaking funny.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I mean, though. Like, right? Like, you knew this was coming. Don't get angry because it happened today or it happened on Thursday versus. And like, look, I talked about it in a podcast, which like I know better than that. I'm a writer first. I should have written that story and had it out there. And then even if you look at the clip that's out there, me talking about it, if you look closely, that's two different clips. It's actually two different clips that are put together very seamlessly. It was done really well. And I wasn't taken out of context, so I'm not attacking that. But those were two totally different like discussions, like 30-second, 40-second discussions that we had at a different point in the podcast that were put together. But I didn't expect that to go viral because very few times do you see a video clip outside of, someone either shacked in a fool or something stupid happened, Wayne Ellington getting shoved by Campazzo or whatever it was. So like, I didn't expect it to go viral, and I had even kind of just moved on and forgot about it. It was just part of a discussion. And then to see it like blow up on Saturday, I was like, all right, that's fine. I said it. I'll stand by it. I don't care. I've covered this team forever, and I hope that my word is strong enough that people would understand that like I was being fair and balanced, and you should probably read the whole thing or listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you are the definitive Kings reporter. Like, you're allowed to talk about this stuff, and I was happy to just see the Kings beat get some love from the different websites that were pushing it out there, and the Kings beat's going to get a lot of love here as we move forward because, as Kenny and I noted to start the show, though the Masters is behind us, it's a tradition unlike any other. The offseason is here, and the Kings are looking for a head coach. We'll come back. We'll talk to James about Alvin Gentry and about some of the different coaching candidates that have popped up through various media sources when D'Lo and Casey return here with James Ham on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. All right. Last one. We'll go to the top of the hour.
Right on 13. Look at you.
Nailed it.
I
was debating on going long, but
it's okay.
They got
it's
the
a good
A's on over there, so it's like
natural.
We're good. We're good.
Wait,
We're
the A's
good.
game's on right now?
Yeah.
Oh, they are starting right now. It just started, right?
I don't know. I just know it's on across the street.
Oh.
Gonna put some butts in the seat.
The only place for coverage of your Sacramento Kings here today.
Now I'm with you. Wow.
Look here.
Like, really?
Yeah.
That's why what we all thought was going to happen didn't happen. We talk about Alvin.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, we didn't think we were going to get that news today. Yeah.
That's why it didn't happen, because they wasn't going to be around.
No, we did not think that was going to happen this morning.
Oh, I wrote it last night. Like I typically I would have had Sunday musings, but to be honest, like there was something else going on that I'm not going to discuss on here. But like there was some other news
Is
that I
that
was
what we
chasing.
talked about?
Oh yeah, that that I was chasing all day yesterday.
Yeah.
And it ran amok and killed my Sunday where I would write Sunday musings.
So I'll save it for post show. I'll save it
Okay.
for when we hit. I'll save it for when we hit in broadcast because that could get a little. But it's
I
funny.
used to hate when shows did this.
So I had to shift gears because like you only have so much time before a game. So I knew that I had to write the Alvin Gentry story. And, like I think I've told you guys this before. Like there was a point where NBC came to me and asked me to write obituaries for people within the Kings. And I was like, wait a sec, like who do you want me to write obituary? Like we just want you to pre-write like a bunch of obituaries. And I'm like the F I'm doing that. Like I don't need that bad juju on my head. I'm not doing that for you. And it became an issue. I'm like, because I'm like, okay, why don't you tell me who you want me to write an obituary for? Yep, nope, not doing that. Nope, not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. But when it comes to coaches, like I have it locked and loaded. I go through and I have a full, formatted already. I cut names out and switch names in. And I think I made a mistake on the email that I sent out that I had to change the win-loss record because I thought the Kings were going to lose yesterday. And so this morning I was groggy and accidentally missed a 4. But
my. Damn it, James.
Damn it, James. So.
Damn, James.
I did not write 1,500 words in like 8 minutes from the time that it like broke until the time I was able to confirm, and I did not do that.
Oh, that's
I may have
unfortunate.
pre-written the whole thing.
Oh man. Did you see Tyler's comment? When a new head coach is hired, James starts writing the fired article.
I had written just like being transparent with people who are on the show here on the stream. I had written the Luke Walton firing when I was at NBC back in February or March and just kept updating numbers. Like I had that locked and loaded because there was a moment last season where it looked like it could happen. And so I had it and I kept telling my bosses, hey, I don't think it's going to happen, but at least I have it, So yeah, behind the scenes of how these things happen. Yeah. I did have that pre-written. So makes it really easy to transition. You just switch in a couple of names, you have it all ready. Yeah.
We're coming back.
Oh.
D'Lo and KC brought to you by McQueen and the Violet Fog, the smoothest gin in the world, handcrafted in Brazil. Plenty of bottles to go around after today's news. Plenty of bottles to go around after discussing the Sacramento Kings. And for James Ham, plenty of bottles to go around for covering this team all of these years. I want to ask one quick question. We were joking about when you write this coach is fired article over on the live stream on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And I did just mention this a couple of minutes ago, and I'm confident I've asked you before, and I don't remember the answer. Maybe I haven't asked you. Was bringing Luke Walton back Monty McNair's decision?
Man,
was it the we'll give him 20 games thing that you talk about so often?
Well, he certainly took it on his own shoulders. Like when Luke was fired, he it was his decision. It according to them, it was his decision. According, like to the Kings, it was Monty McNair's decision to bring him back for this season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I believe it though, because we've seen the same exact thing happen repeatedly.
Yeah.
So it's always the same. It is a 20-game thing. It's always the same. And I don't think anyone thought that this season would be this bad, but it was kind of like the backup plan. They were hoping for some sort of continuity, but were they? Because I'm not sure that they totally were. And so, I mean, Alvin Gentry was brought in last season with the possibility that he could take over at any time, because that's who that's what Alvin is as sort of an associate head coach. Like he's done it. I think that was his 5th or 6th time taking over for someone who was let go mid-season.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever gotten the job outright.
Yeah, I think maybe the Pelicans job.
Man, I think because he was still
He was with the Warriors, right?
Yeah. He left to go. And look, Alvin Gentry is a great guy. If you guys watched the post game last night, we kind of said our goodbyes because we all knew that it was what was going to happen. And then he stopped afterwards and thanked all the media members for being fair and balanced all season in a difficult situation and not putting the blame on him the whole time. And, he was he's a good dude and he was a pleasure to cover. And, there have been quite a few coaches in Sacramento that are that way, where you really, as a person, you enjoy them and you wish that it would have worked out differently for them.
Yeah.
And so, Casey, one quick thing I want to throw at you because I don't think there's a lot to break down regarding Alvin Gentry. We, like you said, we knew, we've known. It's not an indictment of him. It's just kind of the situation. And I feel like you sniffed this out and told us privately. Woj tweeted about it, that perhaps there's another opportunity for Alvin Gentry here with the Sacramento Kings that could be determined here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I've confirmed that there is an offer for Alvin Gentry to join the front office in some capacity. Now, what that is, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But it doesn't mean that I don't think that would be a good idea. I think it would be a good idea, especially if you go with a young coach. It would always be good to have like a mentor there on staff. If you're looking for someone who knows everyone in the league, Alvin Gentry's one of those guys. Not only does he know, all the players, but he also knows so many of the coaches and is able to like give you an assessment on somebody. But overall, I don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, like we heard this with Tyrone Corbin and never saw Tyrone Corbin ever again, that Tyrone Corbin was moving up into the front office, that he would be used as a consultant. And that was strictly because Pete D'Alessandro, without telling anyone else within the franchise, gave Tyrone Corbin a 2-year deal as the head coach and pulled his interim tag. And then they had to pay him the next year, even though George Karl was a coach like 28 games into Tyrone Corbin's, the Tyrone Corbin experience. So they were trying to save face a little bit because they needed to, shine up a pig, like put a little bow, a little hat on him, and say, oh look, oh no, he's gonna still be part of it, even though we're paying him $2 or $3 million next year, when he doesn't need to be on the staff at all, when he should never have been lost his interim tag.
And see, and that's the thing that me and Damian talk about multiple times in this situation. We respect the basketball knowledge that Alvin Gentry has. We respect the man that he is, the relationships that he's built in these decades being in the NBA. And if you want to bring him on because you appreciate that and you think that could be an asset to your franchise, we're all 100% for it. Let's do it. But what sounds ridiculous is you just bring him on just because it's like, well, we owe you another year, so we might as well just bring you on just to pay you, and no real thought of this being a long-term thing or something that be an asset to the club. Just kind of flippantly, like you talked about with Tyrone Corbin, well, you're on the book, so we'll find something for you to do. That's what we don't want. I would love for it to be a true advisor type role or something in the front office to help them evaluate players and coaches and things of that nature. And I guess we don't know what exactly the offer is right now, but I hope it's more so along those lines.
Yeah, and there's nothing that says that it's just a 1-year deal. We didn't hear any of that. Like at this point, it's possible that they're offering him a 2-year contract or something, or a 3-year contract to be in the front office to be part of what they're doing. And like, look, you could have him be like an overseer of scouting, where like he worked with young players on not just like scouting college, but also scouting like your advanced scouts that you send out so you have more information on teams that are coming in. Like Alvin's been part of the league for 34 years. The problem that you have is that would you rather keep a stay in Sacramento, or would you rather go jump on a staff around the league? I mean, people forget, well, they shouldn't forget that Alvin Gentry turned down an opportunity to be Doc Rivers' lead assistant with the 76ers, not this summer, but the summer before when he took the job here in Sacramento, because the easier path to being a head coach again was in Sacramento. Everyone knew that. So, like I would say, Alvin Gentry is still, he's 67 years old. He's still got more basketball in him. If he wants to go be a lead assistant, let's say that, we hear all the time the Kings are interested in Mike Brown and Kenny Atkinson. Well, what does that mean for Steve Kerr's staff? Would Steve Kerr take Alvin Gentry back as one of his lead assistants with the Warriors on a championship caliber team? Of course he would. So look, I think Alvin's going to have opportunities, whether he takes a job in Sacramento or not. We'll see. That has to play itself out, but he may exhaust other avenues before he does that.
We've seen Woj tweet names. We saw Mark Stein write some names in his newsletter. Have you gotten a feel for a potential direction that the Sacramento Kings want to go with this coaching search?
The one thing I'll tell you is I haven't heard a bunch of names directly. I have done, some due diligence around the team and stuff. I've reached out to a couple of people looking for names and stuff. But what we're seeing, the list that we're seeing is all seasoned veteran coaches. And I think that is an interesting, like, sort of wrinkle in this, because a lot of people are out there. Like, if you look at what, again, Memphis is doing, what is it, Taylor Jenkins there. If you look at, again, Chris Finch in Minnesota, you're seeing these young up and coming guys that are getting a lot of looks. Yeah. Well, and Emmy, he's a guy who was in Sacramento, years ago, as a player, and went and worked on Popovich's staff for years and stuff. So you're seeing a lot of these young guys sort of getting their first look, and some of them have been really, really effective. Even if you look at Udoka, he started out really rough.
Yep.
That did not start out the way that anyone thought it would, and all of a sudden they look really good.
They were a 500 team at one point, battling for the 10th spot, and they finished the season 51-31 at the 2 seed.
Yeah, they got on a run. So look, I think when you're looking at the coaches the Kings are looking at, I think for the Kings specifically, that these might be the right names, because you need a steady hand to fix this thing. And we've seen that, of course, Alvin Gentry was given there's nothing you can do with a team that's already quit on themselves, not even quit on a coach.
Right.
Like, they quit on themselves. Like, none of them wanted Luke Walton fired. So, but they still couldn't win, and they still were getting clobbered. So they actually quit on each other more than they did on a coach. And then not only that, but you give Alvin the job, and Alvin took us through the recovery from a coaching fire, the COVID situation where one after another, including Alvin and Doug Christie, both went out. Then he took us through that stage that was awkward where every single player on the team is being mentioned in trades. Then the trade deadline, where half the team got traded. We come out of the trade deadline. You got about 15 games of this is who we could be. And then your 2 stars go down for the final 10. So how many different seasons did Alvin actually coach? Like 6, 5, 6. I mean, it just really wasn't that fair. So I think we're seeing a lot of veteran coaches mentioned because they need a steady hand to take control of the situation and guide them through the next 2 years to get them to the right spot.
De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis spoke today. Part of me was a little surprised they were available. It was like a pleasant surprise. But they spoke today. Is there anything that you heard from either one or both of them that stood out to you?
Well, I'm going to say this first and foremost. Shout out to my guys, Rasan and Alex, the Kings Media Relations directors.
Big ups.
They were. This is something new. I think we did it last year too, where we got players after the season. But for years, we didn't get players after the season. As soon as the final game was over, that was it. So not only did we get those guys today, but they were very clear. Like, hey, look, we're going to give you more players on Saturday and Sunday because some of these guys aren't coming back with us to Sacramento. So this is going to be the last time you get to talk to them. So get whatever you need out of them tonight. So I think it's great. I think it's great that they open the doors and let these guys come in. I think the biggest takeaway I saw that we got from Sabonis and Fox was their different approaches to the coaching search. And Sabonis was very clear, like, yeah, I would like to have my input. Where Harrison Barnes last night literally said, he just laughed. Brendan asked the question, like, hey, do you expect to have some input? And he said, hey, man, thanks for asking. Like, but no, I don't expect them to ask me at all. I don't know. No, I don't think they will. But today with Sabonis, Sabonis is like, yeah, I would like to have a conversation. I don't need to tell them who to hire, but I certainly would like to tell them the type of coach that I think would work, and some coaching names that maybe I know around the league that I've worked with or something. And then Fox is the opposite, where he's like, look, I want someone to give us direction, which is something that Fox has complained about. He likes more direction.
Structure.
He likes more structure. He does not like the freelance. He does not like. He wants someone who will call a play on occasion. Like, that's what he's looking for. So, but Fox also said, like, look, that's not my job. But I want someone who will be here a long time. That's what I want. I want someone who will be here, like, and help us get through this. And so I thought their approaches were really interesting, because that's not often where you get players who are super honest about that, what they would like in the coach coming up.
Is there a negative to you when it comes to involving players in a coaching search, no matter how minuscule the involvement may be?
No. I mean, not if they're the face of your franchise, right? So, I mean, do I have problems that, certain superstars get their coaches fired and have one of their other guys come in that they like more? Has that happened multiple times, and does that feel weird and like sort of disingenuous? Sure, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. If you're the Sacramento Kings, everything is riding on this coming season, because if Domantas Sabonis is not happy at the end of this season, he will not sign a contract extension next summer. And then you go into a final year and it's just a roll of the dice. And if you're name any other 29 team in the league that has had a track record of going to the playoffs, because every other team does except for the Kings, that's one thing. But when you're the Kings, like, you got to hit it. This has to be right. You got to have the right coach. You got to make the right moves. You have to have the right stability within your organization. You have to push people's voices out the door that are noise, and center yourself and make one correct decision after another. That's where we're at. You don't have any more time to waste. And this team is very specifically, they're on like a precipice of disaster. They always have been, but this is, like Kenny keeps saying, you can't have 17. Well, 17 means a complete implosion. That's what it means. And maybe not 17, but if you're bad, again, if you're a 31, 32, 38 win team, that's not good enough. This has got to be a 40-plus win team. It's got to be a team that's on the rise. It's either in the playoffs or so close to it that you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that means that whoever is running this thing, which right now is Monty McNair, it's Wes Wilcox, it's Ken Catanella, whoever is running this thing, They've got to get it right this time, because the next time, it could be a couple of years. It could just be a hot mess. And we've also seen that, like, you hire a coach right now, that doesn't mean that the GM is safe, because this is what this franchise does. Like, you allow a GM to hire a coach, and then a year in, 2 years in, you let go of the GM, and now you have a coach, and then you bring a new GM, and he lets go of the coach, and we just keep going through this same exact cycle again and again. That has to stop. This is it. This is the moment where, like, if you don't get it to stop right now, if you don't stop this cycle, then it's time to clearly, like, the fans have to be vocal about ownership change and about going to the league. And then, like, there has to be some sort of kickback here, because you just can't keep doing it for a decade and expect no repercussions, just running a franchise into the ground and damaging the franchise every time you turn around. So it's harsh.
One thing that concerns me about everything that I talk about, Damian and yourself, about next year being so important, is a lot of pressure. And I'm all for it. Put the pressure on them. I don't care. Like, respond to the pressure. I'm all for that. But one thing that I think about is I feel like there was a lot of pressure coming into this year. And a guy like De'Aaron Fox, it seemed like a lot. I know you mentioned it a couple of different times where it felt like the weight of everything was on his shoulders, and he didn't handle it well earlier in the season. Is that a concern for you with him next year? Like, if we are putting as much pressure as we should be on next year, is that a concern, how De'Aaron might respond to that?
I mean, clearly the guy has to come in and start the season better than he did last year, and he knows that. But I think the pressure that I've felt from Fox is different than, like, the pressure that I feel of getting it right. And I think when, again, we walked into this season, and I told you guys this, like, well before the season started. You walk into the season waiting for a big deal to materialize. The Kings threw away this season waiting for the Sabonis deal to happen. They did. They threw away the season, and they wasted a year of De'Aaron Fox. They wasted a year of Harrison Barnes. They wasted their years of their playing career in order to make the big deal. Now, you got the big deal. You can't waste another year waiting for something like this to happen again. And so, like, I want to say that Fox crumbled under the pressure early on. No, he crumbled under the disappointment that was happening. And I think that the pressure is different. Like, the pressure to get this thing right, sure, it's there. I mean, these guys should feel it. And you know what? Like, pressure has two things it can do. It can crush you, or it can create a diamond. So go be the diamond. Like, it sounds easy, but, like, just get it right. Like, choose people that have pure motives. Choose the right players to chase in free agency. Have a list. Do your research. Know things about players. And I'll go back to, like, the Derek Jones Jr. thing, right? So the Kings had the first conference call with Derek Jones Jr. We know this. They had the first Zoom call because, again, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So, like, free agency wasn't like wine you and dine you in Sacramento, take you to Ella and have a good night out. It's all done via Zoom. Well, they had 3 calls in a row. The Kings made their pitch. One other team made their pitch. I can't remember. And then Portland made their pitch. When Portland made their pitch was about school districts and children and how this is the right place for your family. And that was not the Kings pitch. And that's what landed Derek Jones. It was the personal touch, the understanding of who you're dealing with. Like, do your research. Know the players that you're going after. If you have these personal things, if you're able to connect with people the right way, you can get someone to Sacramento. I don't think you can get an A-list to come to Sacramento, but you certainly can get some really good players if you do it right. And that's why I think, the DiVincenzo thing, it becomes an issue. Like, you didn't do it right. And we see people, talk about the Kyle Guy situation. where Kyle Guy was released and didn't even get a phone call. Like, that's not doing it right. So again, there is more than just like, you better get the best 3-and-D power forward you can possibly get. No, you do need that. Sure. That would be perfect. But this is Sacramento. Finding that perfect exact fit is one thing, but you got to do everything else right. You got to make this a place where people want to come and play basketball. And I think, again, that's where my why you don't start a guy when you're almost out of the playoffs and there's no reason not to start him, and you damage some sort of relationship, even if it's not crushing the relationship or it's totally broken, but you certainly damaged the relationship. For what? For what? At the end, that's it. Like, for maybe a couple of $1 million? Okay. Either way, he's a restricted free agent. He can't go somewhere else. Would you rather have a happy player, or would you rather have a player who's disgruntled and like, I don't know if I want to be here?
That's what Kenny and I were talking about earlier. Is the relationship at the point where, if you're the Kings, like, you don't bother doing this. Like, you just got rid of 2 guys who didn't want to be here anymore. You really want to bring in another guy who doesn't. And again, not trying to equate Dante DiVincenzo to Marvin Bagley or Buddy Hield, particularly Buddy, because I don't think Dante would conduct himself that way. But I think the Kings would know if he begrudgingly came back here, and that feels like you're starting on the wrong foot already.
Yeah.
Like,
You know,
the point is, the relationship has to be soothed over. Like, it has to be fixed. They can't just fall into contract negotiations and go see what the market holds for you. Like, they have to smooth things over, I think, before they even get to that point.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. You can't just extend the qualifying offer, not make a phone call, have him go out and get a deal, and have it be, front loaded and a 15% trade kicker because he doesn't want to be here, and have that be what happens, and then, expect to just match and everything be okay. That's not the way it works. And I know someone in the chatty house said, well, this was that this was Alvin Gentry. Yeah, here we go. Right. Let's see. We can. Yeah.
I think it was Alvin's call, and he didn't start him.
That
was
is
the line.
Not correct. I'll just leave it at that. Alvin Gentry, if he knew that this situation was what it was, and that there was a player who wasn't happy, and he knew what the standings were and everything else, like, these are organizational decisions, flat out. Especially with an interim coach, like, they're organizational decisions. Was Alvin part of that discussion? I'm sure he was, but they are organizational decisions. They're not one man choosing to burn down a relationship when he knows he's only got 14 more games and then he's out the door. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. This is just, it all just seems like a bunch of lack of leadership. The whole organization, just the lack of leadership. And there's people who, I know the quick one is always Vivek, and rightfully so. He's a majority owner. He deserves everything that comes his way. But I mean, James, we talked about guys that are handling things that aren't Vivek, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? It's not like, oh, these are orders from Vivek to handle it this way, or no, they're just laughing in people's faces. Like, what are you doing? Why do you think this is okay on any level to do this stuff? And it's the whole organization that is just filled with people that have no idea what they're doing or no idea how to handle things, in my opinion. That goes from majority owners to minority owners to people in the front office. No common sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I've had so many conversations with people inside the walls that, I mean, I think Monty McNair is brilliant. I actually do. Like, I've had so many conversations with him. I mean, he's an Ivy League guy. He's brought up in basketball. He's really bright. And I've had plenty of conversations with Wes Wilcox, and I think he is a yin-yang perfect fit with Monty. He's a talker, and Monty's the analytics guy. I think they really do mesh well together. I think Ken Catanella, everything we've seen from him with when it comes to these 2-year contracts with third-year team options or 2-year contracts in the second year is a team option. Like Ken has helped this team stay financially like flexible and ready. So I don't think that there is like just it's just a little finer nuances that they sometimes miss. And I want to just say, oh, they're all just like they're just not bright and they don't know what they're doing and they're running amok. I just don't think that that's the case.
No,
like
I don't think they're not bright, but like the little nuances, like it can't. Dante DiVincenzo's a perfect example. Why are you handling it like this? Even if that's what you're trying to do, you save 1.5, and we're just not gonna talk to nobody. We're gonna laugh when it's brought up to talk to somebody. Why are you handling it like this? Like the little nuances that if you can't do the big things, if you can't offer somebody the world because you are in Sacramento or you've had 16 years of playoff failures and you've got a bad reputation, you can't miss on the little nuances. You've got a guy that you've been trying to get in here for 3 years and now he has these feelings for being with you for 2 months because you don't handle the nuances. That has not, like I said, that's not my place to say somebody's smart or dumb, but that's not a good decision. That's not a way to go about that.
I agree with you, but I'll say this too. What if the Kings don't look at Dante DiVincenzo as a starting shooting guard?
He's still in the NBA and needs
but what
to get around. Like,
but what if they don't? What if they don't assess him that way? And their point is, you're not starting because we don't see you even next season and the season after that. We don't know if you're our starter, and we're not going to give you a job. And then this summer go out and find someone who we think is better than you at that job and then have to deal with that as well. So, I mean, there are reasons outside of just financial that you do something. But at the same time, like, again, I think that situations are avoidable. And if you're transparent and if you're able to sit there and walk somebody through why it is that you're doing what you're doing and give them points of why you're doing it, then you can ease some of this, you know. Like I remember having employees that, work for me and they're on commission base and they're like, hey, I want a $3 raise. And I would be like, yeah, the job isn't that. The job is that you make this amount of money. And then if you want more money, you go sell more. And it's like, okay, well, no, I want the $3 and then I want to be able to sell more. It's like, well, no, that's not the game. That's not how we deal with this. So again, like this is one of those situations where like maybe we're missing something. Maybe the Kings have like they just have a specific point of view with him, but at the same time, I like, Justin Holiday shooting 33% from the field. I don't get it. And even if you wanted to pitch me on the fact that Justin Holiday, was the guy who Domantas Sabonis, 24% of Domantas Sabonis's assists went to Justin Holiday when he was with the Pacers. Well, once Sabonis is out of the lineup, again, like you have an opportunity. So I'm just, I think that there's a lot of nuances here, and I hope that they figure it out. I hope that they get on the same page and they figure out how to get themselves like through this and to get better, because at the deadline, I'll tell you, it's not just Sabonis that I think this team got better. I think Trey Lyles made this team better. I think DiVincenzo made this team better. I think that I think even next season, if Justin Holiday is like your 9th or 10th guy in the rotation, that's better than what the Kings walked into this season with. Yeah. Like he's a better fit. And so like, it's just not, I just wish it was easier, if that makes sense. Like that they didn't have these situations that were avoidable, and they didn't, get themselves into conversations where, I have to report something and where someone's unhappy.
Yep.
I like Dante DiVincenzo. I feel like he offers a lot to this team. I also feel like we're talking about like the Kings, like they just wronged Kobe Bean Bryant. And we're trying to figure out how the organization is going to fix it because we just wronged Kobe. And it's like, no, they didn't handle the situation. And I think the greater frustration, and this is just kind of talking with you guys and reading the chat house here, is I think Kings fans are frustrated. Like, dude, we screwed something else up. Like, seriously? Like, and it's not even the caliber. It's not even Dante being Kobe Bryant. It's like, yo, Dante's cool. We like Dante. He had a lot to. We screwed this up? Really? Like, we're not even going to make it to free agency before we screw something up? We can't even get to game 82 before there are reports we screwed things up. And I think for us, it's more like, and another one, just to.
Like to make another James analogy is when you go to sell your house and you do everything you can to make the house look good. You clean the windows, you clean the gutters, you mow the lawn, you put a bunch of flowers in the flower beds. You go inside the house. If you need to swap out the carpet, you pay to have the carpet swapped out so you can sell it. Like, we're about to go into like open house season. That's what free agency is. That's what the summer is. And I would much rather see like a nice new coat of paint put on a house and get this thing ready to go out there and show people that you want this, instead of like, like starting a kitchen fire at the last second and like, hey, sorry, the house is cool, but we did just like, there's a bunch of burned marks in the kitchen where we just started a fire that we didn't get around to. And that's what it feels like. It feels like you're not doing everything in your power to make this as appealing a place as possible. And I hope that they do. I hope that they figure that out. And that they like center themselves and move forward in the right path. And that's all. Because I mean, again, it's too many years. It's so many years of covering the same exact thing.
It doesn't feel like it's going to end. No. Like, this is our life. This is what we do. And we just have to accept it. This is what we do. We cover this horrible basketball team that's never going to win. This is our life.
Perfectly said by both of you guys.
You don't like it, move.
Matter of fact, we're getting ready for an open house, and once again, no shade at all to our guy, but we got people talking about how it's basketball hell. How about we're getting come by this house that is a burning inferno.
Yeah. Look at
James.
That's you have a lot. You have to change the perception. You have to change the perception, and changing perception is it just doesn't seem like it should be this hard.
It really shouldn't, man. It really shouldn't.
It shouldn't. Yeah.
It constantly leaves fans scratching their head like, why, how, and then we invent new ways. Oh, no, we alienated this guy that we tried to draft for the last year and a half and just like brought him here and just totally pissed him off. Yeah, no, where we invent new ways. Sure, we fire coaches like it's not. We fire so many coaches, James Ham can't name all of the coaches that he's worked under. Just can't do it. All right, hold on. Wait a minute. Don't do it yet. Oh, I had them up. Shoot.
I got it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Westfall, Smart, Malone, Corbin, Carl, Yeager, Walton, Gentry. 8. 12 years. I'll be on 9.
Congratulations.
Me, you know who I used to race with this with? Jason Thompson. He could name all the coaches he coached that he played under. And, of course, Jason Thompson leads the team. He's the all-time leader in games played in the Sacramento era.
Incredible.
Yeah, he was like, it was crazy. And he was under Musselman. I think it was like Theus, Nat.
Westfall? Theus, Nat, or no? Oh, James froze. I thought he was being dramatic. I thought James was just like really thinking.
Screenshot's wild right now.
This screenshot is crazy. I just thought James was deep in thought. Turns out he froze. He see that? Hey, somebody clip this and tag the Sacramento Kings. This is what you do. You have frozen James Ham. You have frozen James Ham. This is what the Kings do. James was trying to name all of the Kings coaches, and he froze. Look at this. Look at this. Now, as we say goodbye, we might be able to. This is the first time ever. We might be able to break 2 James Hams. Oh, we had 2 James Hams just for a moment.
I think the wind wiped out my
No,
Wiped.
it wasn't. It wasn't the wind. It was the Kings. The Kings wiped out your internet.
Real tears.
That's the way that it
Real
is.
tears.
We're I think all our internets have just kind of tapped out here on the day. But we appreciate you so much for being with us. The only station covering the Sacramento Kings news today, and we appreciate you tuning in. We will be back again tomorrow. Remember, if you missed any part of today's 4-hour radio show, you can check out Odyssey, Spotify, Google Play. Just search D'Lo and Casey in the podcast form. If you want to catch the entire 5+ hour edition, that's available on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. We'll see you here tomorrow at noon on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320.
Holla.
Thanks, Charlie.
Charlie.
All right, man. Thank you. Oh, and great works. Great being with you the last couple days.
Yeah, Charlie.
All right, man. We'll see you. Stop, baby. You got to stop that. Stop.
TC, what you talking about, man? Just randomly. The home Pete Brick.
What? Oh, remember, I think because Trista froze on Friday too.
That's good knowledge. Good knowledge.
Yeah.
TC. I was confused.
Trista froze on Trista.
Hey, Larry the Bird. You added an M to both of our last names, just so you know.
Yeah.
I know it's like a pet peeve that people spell ham wrong. It's pretty simple.
Well, it's the last name. You got to add an extra letter, man. That's just the way that it is.
Black Bottles 916 in the house. What's up, big dog?
Black Bottles. What's good, baby? I was in them bottles heavy this weekend. I'm not proud of it, but I was.
You were into the bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on the blood thinners. I've got to be cautious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. How much longer you got to do that?
Around. I'll just say it. So I think I'm 21 days in.
I absolutely love how many people screenshotted frozen James Ham and sent it to us.
I know.
There's at least 4. Yep. Bryce, John, David, Jason. Honey, I really need you.
Well, at least it's a good one. At least it's a good one and not a
a
bad one.
That's a good
Yeah.
one. That's a classic.
The Sacramento Kings have broken James Ham.
You know, I don't think that these guys intentionally do a lot of the stuff that happens, and I just don't know. I don't know how to explain it. So
Well, it's maybe you feel this way because it's extremely frustrating because I think these are all very bright people. I mean, they've gotten to where they're at in life because they're intelligent, they're smart people, and smart people making such careless mistakes is just something I don't understand. I don't get it. Better. Why are we doing it this way? And
well, and it would be one thing if you're blindsided, but that's not how I ever conduct business. Just so people know, I do not conduct business that way, where I go out and I blindside somebody. I give people an opportunity to I'm fair and balanced. That's the way. I went to them and said, "Hey, this is a situation. Is there gonna be anything different?"
Mhm.
And their answer was, "Well, no, not really." And it's okay, well, I'm gonna keep getting this, that there's an issue, and you can either do something about it or not. And your choice was to do something about it. I mean, to not do something about it. I mean, it was to avoid it. And all right.
It's a good question.
It seems a little socially awkward, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I'll say this: no, I think is the easy answer. I've been at large events where Vivek will do a 15-minute speech. And then they'll do the Q&A section afterwards. Someone will raise their hand. They'll ask a question that he went over inside the inside of his speech, he'll rewind to that point in his speech and he'll reiterate the entire thing that he just said. It's almost like computer-like, it's very different. And so I've always been intrigued by him. I've had plenty of conversations with him, you know, but like, yeah, I think people skills, like, but not everybody has people skills. Like, not everybody is able to just sit and talk on the radio or sit and talk to a group of people without it being like very scripted in their head about how they're going to talk about things. Like, I'm someone who speaks extemporaneously always. But I'm also saturated in you know, content that I've done forever. So like, you can't ask me a question about the Sacramento Kings that I can't answer. Like, I would like to answer everyone's questions about who do I think will be the head coach of the Kings. Like, that's going to be really tough because we're at the like day one of the hunt, and like, there are a lot of people that are going to be talked to here. But I think that they're going to go with a veteran coach. That's what it seems like. You know, I don't think like the Mike D'Antoni thing to me doesn't make any sense because he doesn't like playing with a big man. I want someone who has worked with a big man like Sabonis. That's, you know, one of my points of view, but that might not be theirs. They just might want someone who does pace and crazy stuff, or someone who presents like a really solid case and has a good proven track record as a winner.
Yeah.
But there are some really good names out there because of guys like Taylor Jenkins and Chris Finch, that all of a sudden Willie Green, who have gone, and Emmy, like all of a sudden there's like 4 or 5 or 6. You know, it's crazy. Like, we're not going to mention him for the Kings job because I don't think you can go back. But like, even Dave Yeager's name isn't mentioned. And when you look at all the names that are being mentioned, there are lots of coaches that are available right now that are seasoned coaches that have won in other places and have done good things. And so, yeah, I think they have an opportunity to really hit a home run here and do something right. But, you know, you gotta have the interviews. You've got to see who feels best, and then who has an idea of how to get this team out of the situation they're in and move forward with someone that, you know, is the right choice.
All right. Well, we're going to end the stream so we can talk shit for a few minutes. And, man, thanks for hanging out. It's 5 hours today. Y'all hit the thumbs up. If you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, could you please? I mean, we did pretty solid today, but given how many people are still in here, and the show's been over for like 5 minutes, if y'all could just a couple more, hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the Kings Beat channel as well. Oh, I never did the poll results. Most appealing head coach. This is gross. Most appealing head coach of the 4 names listed. And we'll do this again tomorrow with 4 other names: Mike D'Antoni, Steve Clifford, Frank Vogel, Mike Brown. 33% say Mike D'Antoni.
Mike D'Antoni, yeah.
28% say Steve Clifford. 24% say Mike Brown.
Really? And who is the 4th option?
Frank Vogel.
Yeah.
0%.
I'm not sure that like Frank Vogel struck out in Orlando, but his teams in Indiana were good. Yeah.
They were. He did a good job with them until they weren't. Was that after he lost Paul George or during?
Oh, that's a good question.
That
I think Paul George was still there.
I think Paul George was still there. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong there. Like, Indiana is another place that often gets it kind of funky with coaches. I've always liked Frank Vogel as a coach. I don't know now. I mean, like, coming out of the Lakers deal and the fact that you're another Lakers retread kind of puts you in a weird position. But still, I think he's good. And then you guys, Matt George asked me a question. You guys like chastise him for the Luka conversation?
I didn't. No. I think there is this repeated line that, like, Brandon Williams held the front office at gunpoint to draft Marvin Bagley, and it's bullshit. Like, it's not true. But
Okay.
Vlade Divac selected Marvin Bagley, no matter how it's shaped, framed, or looked at. I know Brandon really liked both guys. I've always been under the belief Brandon liked Luka more, but he saw the vision for Marvin Bagley. That's what I heard. And this constant Brandon Williams did this, Brandon Williams did that. It's trash. Because it's
Okay.
not. I don't think that it's true.
I heard. I'll tell you real quick, Dan. I'll tell you a little bit more what I heard. I heard.
We're still live, by the way. Just
yeah, I got you.
okay.
Okay. Brandon Williams like Luka, and the concern was, can Luka and Fox play together? And he's like, well, we'll figure that out when we get them. If not, you just move on from them. But put them together, and Luka's the better. Like Luka's better. Is better than Bagley. Like that's how that story was presented to me. Is Brandon was like, yo, we should take Luka. The retort was, well, what about him and Fox together? And he was like, so what? They'll figure it out. And if they don't, you move on from one.
Okay, so I will tell you that Vlade has told me to my face without any questions. We sat at it was a beginning of the season, like luncheon that they had us. I sat next to Vlade. He told me very specifically, I did not think that Luka and Fox could coexist. And I knew Luka was a ball dominant player. I don't know what position he would have played on offense. He's a basketball player. That probably would have been fine. But I don't know what position he will play on defense at all. I do not think he will defend anyone. And so he's like, so look, I thought that Marvin would be a better like fit with him. Now, that's Vlade saying that. I have to take Vlade at his word. At the same time, like Brandon Williams did everything but have a t-shirt printed that said Marvin is my guy. Like that's my pick. I did that. So, but that was also Brandon's personality. Brandon is like Pete D'Alessandro, but different. They're both super destructive, super hyper destructive people, and the reason why they're hyper destructive is very specific. They get into a situation where they look around and they see an opportunity where they can gain power, because that is what exists inside there. And people who have that mentality, who are either climbers or who have an agenda, they find it super easy. And that's one of the problems that the Kings have that they have to solve. They have to figure out why it is that people like that, number one, are let in the door. Number two, are not kicked out of the door instantly. Like we talked about Littlefinger. Like this is what I'm talking about. It's people like that. And it's that you continuously find those people, or those people find you and are able to convince you to hire them. And that's the problem. You create a situation where people can literally fire a training staff while Vlade's on vacation. And look, they're, just so you know, Pete Youngman, like that whole situation wasn't good, right? But there were other situations attached to that were horrible and that people were sued for hostile work environments. Because that situation got out of control, like around that. Like, again, Mike Bratz just like let go because he had a certain amount of power over specific things and somebody else wanted that power. Like it's always a power grab. And until you can put in a structure where that type of stuff is not allowed, then you're going to keep having situations like this. And so that's where I think it's, like I talked about it in the piece I wrote, like just take a step back if you're Vivek, because like there are things that he's amazing at. Like he's really, really good at things, but that doesn't mean he's good at doing things like hiring people. And I worked for managers for years, and I would build up a staff. We'd get a new store director, and they would take over the reins of all that stuff. And I would go, all right, it's up to you. Like, they take over the schedule, they take over the hiring, the firing, all that stuff. And then 3 weeks later, when our staff had already turned to trash, they would come back and say, okay, I don't get it. What am I doing wrong? And I'd be, all right, that's fine. Let me help you out. And I'd go back in. Like, some people are good at hiring people and some people aren't. And I think that that's part of it. And again, I'll tell you, I think Monty was the right hire. Like, he's a bright dude who has clear motives. Like, his intentions are to make this team good. But can you get through that? Can you survive long enough to make a difference, to change a culture of a franchise? And that's really the biggest question. Like, it's always a question.
Jill says it perfectly here. As long as you're fighting each other, you aren't worrying about fixing the actual product. And I'll say it, that is an ownership issue.
It's a culture that you've created within your organization. And it's not just one person. I would like to tell you.
When I say ownership, there's how many people own that Kings franchise?
Oh, yeah, but you shouldn't worry about that. There's only one that makes decisions.
But once again, when there's fighting within, once again, how does this even come out? The night before, the day before, how do these stories always come out? Because there's fighting from within all the time.
There's always someone with motivation. Always. There is.
Those people that you talk about looking to try and find a way to gain power or to gain notoriety, that happens in ownership as well. And as long as there's fighting going on with them, it's going to be hard for Monty or anybody else to fix that, because everybody's always got an agenda. Everybody.
Yeah. I think we talked about this in the beginning. Like, who in their right mind would look at the Kings job and say, I'm in? I mean, look, when Monty took the job, like, just spell it out, like, super clear. Number one, you have a coach you can't hire, and you have to pay him for at least one more year, but you have 2 years on top of that. So that's number one. You had to have Luke Walton as your coach. Number two, Joe Dumars is floating out there, and no one knows what Joe Dumars is. Number three, you have Buddy Hield on your roster with 3 more years left on his contract at 24, 22, and 20. And can you move him or can you not? That is a big deal, right? So number four, you have one of the first things that Monty had to do was sign De'Aaron Fox to a 5-year, $163 million contract. So you're already roping your contract, your money in so deep that it's crazy, right? And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that that's one of the first 4 things that he had to deal with. And then Wes, like, Monty and Wes didn't know each other. So you had 3 guys trying to get the job, Sasha and Gupta. You had Wes Wilcox, and you had Monty McNair. Monty McNair got the job, and then Wes Wilcox was hired as the assistant GM. And Ken Catanella is already there. So you're Monty McNair. You didn't truly get to hire your 2 assistants. You didn't get to hire your 2 assistant GMs. You didn't get to hire your head coach. That's tough.
Wow.
Like, that is a situation where it's like, oh man, I don't know. That's really, really difficult if you're a general manager getting your job for your first time. And if that is your situation, you better have swing a big stick. Like, you better know how to manage people, know how to manage situations, and be on top of it. And I think he's done a really good job with, did he do it as quickly as we all hoped? No. But, sometimes opportunities present themselves when they present themselves, and there's nothing else you can do about that. They waited out until the Sabonis deal became a real thing. Until the Ben Simmons thing became a dead thing. Like, they had to wait those things out, and that it's not. But if you're going to build this franchise and make it good for years to come, this is a deal you had to do. You had to wait for the Sabonis deal so you have an all-star, because that's the only way. Now you gotta do it the best you can to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right, y'all. 5.5 hours later. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you tomorrow at noon.
Holla.